Alright, furries are everywhere. But why? Let's talk about it. It's kind of funny because I was fully inspired to do this video from a Destiny 2 Grandmaster Nightfall, because as you know, I'm the unemployed friend on a Tuesday at 2 p.m. I've got nothing to do, and so when I'm not really working on videos, I'll just game or brainstorm or a mix of the two. And I was doing some Grandmaster Nightfalls in Destiny 2, and yes, I'm a Destiny 2 player. I mean, I've made a couple of videos on it in the past, so. But either way, I love Destiny 2, I kind of hop on it from time to time, and I was going through the Fireteam Finder to go through this Nightfall on like the highest difficulty. It's like a strike sort of thing. It's Destiny stuff. I was matchmaking to find people that would join me for the GM, and the first person that joined, known as Stingrocker, immediately recognized my name. They were like, oh hey, Beta Delota, I haven't watched him in forever. Is this actually him? And then I replied, nah, parody account. That's like the new thing I do, like even if I'm on my main account, which yes, my name in Destiny 2 is just Beta Delota. It's kind of telling there. But whenever someone asks, are you the real Beta? I always reply, nah, parody account. But this time around, someone recognized me again while I was playing Destiny 2. And this happens pretty frequently, believe it or not. Like, the amount of times I have been recognized in Destiny or any other game that I play that I know a lot of furries also play is a lot more frequent than I like to admit. But I've had this moment many times, and it happened again recently, and I ended up shooting the shit with this guy for a little bit while we were doing the Nightfall. And he was talking about how furry is becoming more and more of a prominent thing, and he's been seeing furries a lot more often. Like in games that he's playing, in different hobbies or interests that he has, even in his job, he's seen and recognized people that are furries. Whether it was someone with a furry t-shirt, a sticker, or they had like Chip the Husky in their name on Destiny 2. And they asked me pretty simply, why are furries everywhere nowadays? And I gave them a pretty simple answer of furries are geeks and nerds at the end of the day. I like to consider the furry fandom as like a geek culture hobby. That's why you see a lot of furries in the IT departments, in STEM jobs, in other like nerdy geek-centric games or hobbies. Anything that has some overlap in some way, shape, or form with the interest of anthropomorphic animal characters, I feel like will have furries in it. And that's when I had my urethra moment and decided to make this video. And I am going to apologize ahead of time. Sorry for saying that just now. It definitely will happen again. But from that very simple conversation that I had with him, it brought to mind this idea that I've kind of been asking myself for a while. Why are furries so common to recognize? And it could come down to just simply, oh, I'm a furry. I've been a furry for like 5+ years. It's a lot easier to recognize anyone who might be a furry from the clothes they wear, to their demeanor, to any stickers they might have on their car or on whatever they have on them. The small, minute details. But the thing is, even though this has been the case throughout the time that I've been a furry, it's become a lot more frequent recently. And not like furries that I recognize as like people that are local to the area. I'm like, oh hey, you're this guy. I've heard about you on Twitter. But downright some people who I have no clue who they are or that they existed, but they have like a Bad Dragon sticker on their phone case. And so that's what's led to this video that I want to do today. Furries are everywhere. And I mean everywhere. If you look for them, you'll find them. But why? So thank you to Stingrocker in Destiny 2 for inspiring me to do this video, and for humoring me in this whole idea to begin with, and for also being a good fellow teammate through the Nightfall. Trust me, I have not had good luck with the Fireteam Finder recently. But we ended up having a very interesting conversation about the state of the furry fandom, specifically wherein furries are just everywhere. You recognize them pretty much wherever you go. If you're looking for them, you're going to find them, whether you're in an IT tech department, whether you're a software engineer, or in some other STEM-based job or career, or you play a lot of games that furries might frequent. If there's any sort of other hobby or interest that is adjacent to the interest in anthropomorphic animal characters, there will likely be furries there. Because you got to keep in mind, furries are people as well. Something that isn't really mentioned alongside a lot of things, and it's like, wow, why do furries like this? Because people like this. Right now, let's talk about why furries are everywhere, or why you probably recognize furries more often than you might used to have. The simple answer for it is just the furry fandom is growing. Like, we are at the point now, for like a frame of reference, in the past year, give or take, the 3 like big mainstream furry conventions have all had record-breaking attendance each year. It started with MFF this last year, over 15,000 attendees, broke the record for being the biggest furry convention ever. Then that got topped, but I probably shouldn't be using that word here, but we're going to continue on anyways. That record got broken by Furry Week in Atlanta, or FWA, earlier this May, and then like a few months later, Anthrocon blew that attendance record out of the water with over 17,000 people that went to this convention in the middle of Pittsburgh. But the furry fandom is growing at a pretty big rate, and the reason for that could just simply come down to that things are a lot more chill and people are more accepting of furries. I think there are a group, or I guess demographic, of folks that do exist that have wanted to be furries for like like a while now, and that this goes for like years ago, but they were worried about being judged harshly just for participating in a hobby that makes them happy. And as years have gone on, it's become a lot more chill where people just in general, and this goes for like the non-furries looking at furries, where they don't really care what furries do. It's a hobby that people participate in. It might be naturally weird or naturally cringe, but furries aren't hurting anyone. The whole concept of the hobby is dressing up as them, cosplaying as them, and partaking in a community. That's just pretty much what it comes down to. And if you understand that, then you're probably in the group of people that think that furry is just an okay and chill thing, whether you're in support of it or you don't really care and just let people be happy. I guess the short version here is people are a lot more chill with others doing their thing and being happy, especially if it doesn't affect them. As we've moved further and further away from the 2016 cringe era, where like furries became like the big punching bag on the internet around that time, furries have also just become a lot more known as a chill community. And so with that kind of reassurance in mind, I feel like a lot more people are more open to experiencing furry or to enjoying aspects of it, whether that be going to conventions or partying or dancing in fursuit or making fursuits or drawing art. Furry, I feel like outside of just an interest in anthropomorphic animal characters, is all about creativity. It is about growing into yourself. It is about growing into the person that you want to be unapologetically, without judgment or prejudice, to allow you to just create whatever it is that you are happy doing. Obviously, within reason, hopefully. There are a lot of factors that I can talk about as to why I think the furry fandom is growing, but I think it's kind of obvious to a lot of folks that it's just less hate equals more people wanting to join it, or more people being okay with it, and also more people feeling like they won't be judged poorly for joining it. The one thing to keep in mind, especially about it, is that furry revolves around the concept of anthropomorphic animal characters, which is a concept that has existed for a long time, since like humanity started. I wouldn't say since humanity started. I don't actually know when the first idea of anthropomorphized animal characters was, but it's been around for a long while, giving animals that we see in life human traits. That has evolved more and more, and it's especially evolved in the point where we have the furry fandom. So with that in mind, furry is not tied to any sort of franchise or brand or anything like that. It is strictly based off of creativity. Hopefully it stays that way too, which the corporatization of the furry fandom might be another video for another day if it gets to that point, but who knows? And that's what makes it different from other hobbies and fandoms out there. Like, I know a lot of people draw comparisons to like the brony community to furries. The brony community, I feel like, relies almost entirely upon the material that is created from the My Little Pony IP. But unlike the brony community and like other communities like comic book fans, anime watchers, or anyone tied to a specific movie, franchise, brand, or whatnot, furries never really started from that. I say not really because we do have the occasional furry bait character that comes out like once a year or so, and that comes from some franchise or game or movie or some piece of media that has an anthropomorphic animal character. Furries fall in love with it because they're either super hot or super cute. Usually it's the former rather than the latter, and then in turn you have more furries. So the furry fandom is growing, long story short, and it's not hard to see why. Many different reasons, from furries being more accepted and chill, to more furry bait characters being made, to the community growing every single day, whether that be attendees at a convention, or people wanting to make their first Fursona, or whatever it might be. There's no way to really gauge it per se either, since I feel like the furry fandom is predominantly an online community as much as it practices and exists in person, and that's mainly, you know, the avenue that you'd probably want to participate in furry with. A lot of it does exist online. It connects a lot of us together. So there's not really a way to gauge like the actual furry population too, because there's also furries that just don't really use the internet much either, so it's probably a lot bigger than we all think at the end of the day. But with regards to furries being everywhere, outside of the furry fandom growing, I think it also depends on where your bubble is within like your interests, your hobbies, and adjacent hobbies from furry. Like within the context of when I was talking to this other Destiny 2 furry the other day, they brought up specifically how they see a lot of other furries in other games they play, not just in Destiny 2. And that's why I replied, oh, furries are geeks and nerds, so you're naturally going to see furries in other geek-based hobbies and other nerd-based hobbies. Furries like anime, furries like video games, furries like IT tech departments. And within the end of anything that branches off from furry that might have some anthropomorphic animal character in it, you're bound to see furries repping that a lot more. Though not necessarily, I'd like to think. Actually, that might not be fully true. I don't know if that's necessarily true that bit, so take that with a grain of salt. Actually, take everything I say with a grain of salt. I'm just a YouTuber at the end of the day. Like, I wrote down the script for this video on a mini booklet. It's this long for notes. There's no citations here besides what Stingrocker told me in my fire team. But then it got me thinking, you know, within the realm of just like IT and just like tech, video games, nerd culture, you're gonna see furries often, yes, but that isn't exclusively the case. You know, as much as I might think furry is a nerd or geek hobby and a part of geek culture, though it's separate and it does its own thing, the better response for why furries are everywhere is that furry is a human hobby. I feel like that's something that's not really mentioned a lot. Like furries are separate from people. Like, oh, furries aren't like people. No, furries are people. They have people interests too. Furries come from many different walks of life. It is not exclusive to like IT workers or STEM field workers or anything like that. Furries are just everywhere because people are everywhere. Furries come from all different walks of life with all different sorts of backgrounds and all sorts of different interests that aren't just furry, that might not even relate to furry at all. Now, I realize that assumption about furries being strictly nerds and geeks might not be true. In fact, it probably isn't true. Furry is a people hobby, it is a people fandom, and a people community. You don't have to be a nerd or a geek or have to be involved in any sort of other hobby to be a furry. So as much as the whole geek culture furry thing might be sort of true, I feel like that doesn't explain or really encompass the whole big picture of the kinds of people that partake in the furry fandom. Like what I just even described for like a subset of furries are like geek, nerd, IT, tech furries, and that does not encompass the rest of the community. So to properly answer the question, why are furries all over? There are so many furries. Why? The simple answer, which might not really be the best answer, is that the furry fandom is a people's fandom. It is a people's community. It is a people's hobby. Furries are people. That is the easy answer. And so with that in mind, you're going to have people from many different backgrounds, from different walks of life, who want to be a furry and participate in the community. And you know, even the whole nerd culture thing doesn't have to be you're fully engulfed in it. I like to think that furries are a little bit of nerds. Like every furry is a little bit of a nerd or a dork in a good way. But that doesn't mean they're like full-on video game nerds or enjoy the same exact things as everyone else does. The main lesson here is that furries come from all different walks of life. They have all sorts of different backgrounds and all sorts of different sub-interests or interests completely unrelated to furry that make them who they are. So yeah, that was pretty much this video, so thank you all for watching. In all seriousness, kind of wanted to just wing it with this random commentary idea that I came up with from playing Destiny 2, which, hey, you know, I've been playing that again recently. I haven't done a raid, so if you want to help me through a raid, I'd greatly appreciate it. Except the new one. I don't know anything about geometry. I nearly fucking failed that course in high school, so I had a lot of fun with this, and I probably missed some things that I could have probably mentioned in this video. So if I did and you think it is appropriate to mention, be sure to leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on this stuff. A lot of this, again, kind of comes down to my experience with what I've seen within furry for the past like 5+ years, and more, I guess, based on opinion in my, I like to call it sphere of influence, but it's like my own little bubble or world of people that I know, have met, interact with on like a daily basis. And that doesn't even come close to the huge sphere of many different people within furry. But obviously, you know, don't put out like personal information or anything. But like, you know, if you have a background of like, hey, you know, I'm a construction worker furry and I participate in this part of furry, but I also enjoy this hobby outside of it. I love kind of like hearing that stuff without like, you know, going into too much detail. Obviously, do what you're comfortable with, you know. But yeah, if you disagree with any of what I say too, that is also valid. I just like hearing what you guys have to say about these videos. If you want me to do more impromptu topics like this, I would also appreciate any recommendations as well. I'm really bad when it comes to video ideas. I just kind of wing it and experience life and hope that something comes up, and it happened to be that I got this idea from Destiny 2, so there you go. It was good for something. Maybe this video will pay off the $100 that I had to spend for the game to enjoy it. So either way, that's about going to do it for me. If you recognize me in a game, feel free to say hi. I might not get back fully because if it's like super late, I'm probably zooted out of my mind too, relaxing. But just know I do appreciate anyone who does, you know, say hi. And if I'm toxic in the game, I'm sorry, I don't try to be toxic. But either way, that's about going to do it for me. Thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful night. Take care. Life stay jacket. And I'll see you all in the next one. Yeah, I can't really make the Nicolas Cage face, but editor, if you want to zoom in on it as I say bye, feel free to do so. Bye.